Some stories stay with you forever. Here's one of them. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The Belmont Enterprises Gala Hall was a whirlwind of elegance. Hundreds of high society guests mingled amidst the clinking of champagne glasses and the chatter of canapes. At the center of it all was Mauricio Belmont, a 34-year-old bachelor, the most coveted man in the city. Tall, dashing, and the heir to a multi-million-dollar fortune, he was the kind of man every mother in that room wanted for her. Her daughter, his own mother, the impeccably dressed Morgana Belmont 58, was no exception. She steered him through the daughters of the elite, her voice a low murmur in his ear. "Mauricio, look at Patricia, she's stunning tonight. Her father just closed that huge deal." Mauricio glanced at the woman for a brief moment and shook his head. "I'm not interested, mother," Morgana insisted, now gesturing towards a blonde in a blue dress. "And what about Fernanda? Harvard-educated, old money family." "Not her either." A third attempt. Morgana practically pushed Mauricio in the direction of a dazzling redhead. "Son, Vanessa is single. Her family is very well established." Mauricio stopped abruptly and looked his mother in the eye. "Mother, I've told you I'm not interested. Please stop." Morgana felt a growing desperation. At 58, widowed for 10 years, Mauricio was all she had. Since her husband's death in an accident, Mauricio had become her entire world. The thought of losing him to any woman terrified her, yet she had to maintain appearances. A 34-year-old bachelor in their social circle was a subject of much gossip. In the back of the hall, a discreet figure worked, almost invisible to the hundreds of guests. Paula Santos, 24, wore a simple uniform from the cleaning company. She moved quietly between tables, collecting glasses and wiping up small spills. Paula had a natural beauty, free of heavy makeup. She worked with the dedication of someone who desperately needed the job. She had been cleaning the company's offices for 2 years, always a ghost to the powerful figures who ran the place. Bored with his mother's matchmaking attempts, Mauricio's gaze wandered across the room. That's when he saw Paula, kneeling and meticulously cleaning a spill on the floor. While she worked, she smiled at a waiter who stumbled. "Be careful, love," she said softly, helping him steady himself. Mauricio watched her with a sense of wonder. Her kindness was so genuine, so natural. While all the other women were competing for his attention with calculated charm, here was someone who was simply being human. Paula finished cleaning and straightened the chairs that had been knocked askew. No one asked her to. She did it because she cared. "Mauricio?" Morgana noticed her son's attention had wandered. "I was talking about the Almeida's party." "One moment, mother." Mauricio walked away, heading straight for Paula. Morgana watched him, confused. When she realized he was approaching the cleaning lady, her blood ran cold. Mauricio stopped near Paula, who hadn't noticed him. "Excuse me," he said gently. Paula turned, startled. When she saw Mauricio, her eyes widened. She knew exactly who he was. "Yes, sir. Did I do something wrong?" "What is your name?" "Paula, sir. Paula Santos." Mauricio smiled, a genuine smile for the first time in years. "How long have you worked here?" 2 years, sir. I clean the offices and today I came to help with the party." Mauricio studied her face. There was no artifice, no calculation, just a hard-working woman trying to make an honest living. "Do you like what you do?" "Yes, I do. Work's work, and everyone here has always been good to me." Something stirred within Mauricio. For years he had been surrounded by people who were only interested in his fortune, and here was a woman who wanted nothing from him, who never even dreamed she could. Mauricio turned and walked towards the small orchestra. Morgana, watching from afar, felt her heart pound in her chest. Mauricio gestured for the conductor to stop the music. The sound ceased. Hundreds of eyes turned to him. "Excuse me, everyone," Mauricio said, taking the microphone. A low murmur spread through the room. Morgana rushed towards him. "Son, what are you doing?" Mauricio ignored his mother. "Friends, I apologize for the interruption, but I need to make an important announcement." The room fell silent. Paula watched, confused. "For years you've seen me reject commitments, reject the idea of marriage. Many of you have wondered why," Morgana whispered desperately. "Mauricio, for the love of God." "The answer is simple. I was waiting to find someone real, someone genuine, someone who would love me for who I am, not for what I have." Mauricio's eyes found Paula in the crowd. She was frozen in place. "And today, I found that person." Morgana felt her legs give way. Mauricio stepped off the stage and walked through the hall, heading towards Paula. Guests parted, whispering in shock. The socialites realized he wasn't going to any of them. Paula, seeing Mauricio approach with the microphone, wanted to run, but she couldn't move. Mauricio stopped in front of her. Hundreds of people watched in stunned silence. "Paula Santos," he said into the microphone, "Mr. Mauricio, for the past 2 years, I have watched you work. I've seen your dedication, your kindness, your honesty. I've seen a real woman in a world full of fakes." Morgana arrived, trying to interrupt, but Mauricio continued. "Paula Santos, I want you to marry me." The proposal echoed through the hall like a bomb. Women gasped. Men were left speechless. Morgana felt the world spin around her. Paula looked around, seeing hundreds of shocked faces. Some were curious, many were full of disdain. Mauricio knelt in front of her, still holding the microphone. "I know this seems crazy. I know we come from different worlds, but in 2 years of watching you, I've learned that character has no social class. Kindness has no price, and true love doesn't look at a bank account." Tears streamed down Paula's face. She had never imagined someone like Mauricio would even notice her. "Will you build a life with me?" Paula looked at Morgana, who was white with rage. She looked at the guests who were whispering in disapproval. Then she looked at Mauricio, waiting for an answer. For an eternal moment she hesitated. To accept would mean entering a world that wasn't hers, facing a lifetime of prejudice. But when she looked into Mauricio's eyes, she saw genuine love. "Yes," she whispered. Mauricio smiled and stood up. She said yes. The reaction was mixed. A few people applauded politely. The majority remained in shocked silence. The women exchanged indignant glances. The men shook their heads in disapproval. Mauricio pulled Paula close and kissed her. The whispers exploded. "He's lost his mind." A cleaning lady. Morgana must be dying. Morgana watched the kiss, feeling something die inside her. It wasn't just social embarrassment. It was pure terror. Mauricio had been her reason for living since her husband died. Sharing him with another woman, especially one who didn't belong in her circle, left her desperate. As Mauricio kissed Paula, Morgana whispered to herself, "My son is all I have. I won't lose him." The next day, Morgana acted quickly, hiring the best private investigator in the city. "I want to know everything about Paula Santos, her past, her family, debts, vices, anything I can use." "Yes, ma'am. You'll have a full report in a week." Meanwhile, Mauricio treated Paula like a queen. He bought her elegant clothes, took her to the best restaurants, and introduced her to a select group of friends. Paula felt she was living a fairy tale, but she noticed Morgana always watched her with a cold, piercing gaze. A week later, the investigator returned with a report for Morgana. "Mrs. Belmont, I found absolutely nothing against Paula Santos. She was orphaned by her father as a child. She takes care of her sick mother. She's worked at the same job for years. She's never been in trouble, has no vices, debts, or dubious past. She is genuinely a good person." Morgana dismissed the investigator in a fit of irritation. If there was nothing real to use against Paula, she would try a more direct approach. 2 days later, Morgana invited Paula to have coffee at the mansion. "My dear Paula," Morgana said with false sweetness, "you're a sweet girl, but you must realize this. Marriage is a mistake." "Why do you say that?" Mauricio is going through a rebellious phase. This is a reaction against social expectation. He loves me, Mrs. Morgana. My dear girl, men like my son don't marry women like you. They have their fun, but they always return to their own kind. Paula felt a stab of pain, but maintained her dignity. Mauricio isn't like that. Morgana changed tactics. $10,000, she said coldly. That's a lot of money for someone in your situation. Paula stood up from the table. Are you offering me money to leave your son? I'm offering an intelligent solution to something that will only end in heartbreak. I don't accept. Paula walked out of the room. Morgana watched her go with a mixture of admiration and irritation. The girl had more character than she expected. She would need more drastic methods. That night, Morgana drove through Paula's neighborhood. It was a humble but honest place, full of hard-working people, but Morgana was looking for exceptions. That's when she saw Osvaldo Peixoto, a 55-year-old man clearly ravaged by alcohol, sitting on the sidewalk with a bottle in his hand. His clothes were dirty, his beard unkempt, and his eyes had the lost look of someone who had given up on life. Morgana approached him. "Excuse me, sir." Osvaldo looked up with bloodshot eyes. "Hello, ma'am. Sorry for the state of me." "No problem. Can I talk to you for a moment?" Morgana sat on the low wall nearby. "Do you know Paula, who lives there?" "Little Lorenina, you mean? Hard-working girl, always says hello." "What if I told you I could give you $10,000 for a small favor?" Osvaldo's eyes widened. For a man who barely had money for his next drink, 10,000 was a fortune. "What kind of favor?" "It's very simple. You're going to pretend to be Paula's father." "But I'm not her father. Her father died when she was a child." "Exactly. You're going to pretend to be a father she hid, a father with problems." Morgana explained the plan. Osvaldo would introduce himself as the biological father Paula had hidden out of shame, a former inmate and an alcoholic. $10,000 to play the part until the marriage is called off. Osvaldo, desperate and consumed by his addiction, agreed. "For that kind of money, I'll be anyone you want me to be." Morgana spent the next few days feeding information to Osvaldo. She told him about Paula's childhood, how she lived with her grandmother. She gave him details about her sick mother, making Osvaldo memorize every fact to make his story convincing. "If they ask for documents, say you lost everything in a flood. If they ask why you disappeared, say you were ashamed of being in prison." A week before the wedding, Morgana put her plan into action. Mauricio and Paula were at the mansion when the maid announced, "Mr. Mauricio, there's a man at the door saying he's Paula's father." Paula was confused. My father died when I was a child." Mauricio frowned. "Let's see what this is about." They found Osvaldo at the gate, intentionally looking dirtier and more inebriated. "Paula, my daughter," he yelled, stumbling. Paula recoiled in horror. "Sir, you're mistaken. My father died 20 years ago." "Died nothing. Your father is right here." Osvaldo beat his chest. "Why'd you tell these people I was dead?" Mauricio watched with growing unease. Morgana, who just happened to be there, feigned surprise. "Paula, dear, who is this man?" "I don't know." "Mrs. Morgana, I've never seen him in my life." Osvaldo staggered closer. "How can you not know me? I'm Osvaldo Peixoto, your father. You were born when I was in prison, but I'm your father." "Prison?" Mauricio asked, trying to make sense of it all. "Kid. I did 5 years for robbery. When I got out, the girl was already grown, living with her grandmother. But I never stopped being her father." Paula was in shock. "That's a lie. My father's name was João Santos, and he died in an accident." "Santos is your mother's name. You're a Peixoto on your father's side." Osvaldo, well rehearsed by Morgana, repeated the memorized details. He knew where Paula had lived. He knew about her sick mother. He knew small facts that made the story believable. Mauricio was torn. He wanted to believe Paula, but this man knew specific details. "Paula, explain what's going on." "I don't know, Mauricio. I've never seen this man before." Mauricio tried to investigate. "Sir, do you have any documents to prove this?" "I lost everything in a flood, kid, but I can tell you things only a father would know." Osvaldo perfectly repeated the information Morgana had given him. Morgana, playing the voice of reason, intervened. "Dear, perhaps you're ashamed of your family's past. It's understandable. But now that we're going to be family, there can be no secrets." "I'm not hiding anything," Paula screamed. Mauricio tried to be fair. "If he is your father, it's not a problem. Everyone has a complicated family. I just need the truth." "He is not my father," she cried. "Mauricio, you have to believe me." But Mauricio was divided. The details Osvaldo knew were too specific. The seed of doubt had been planted. In the following days, Mauricio tried to discreetly investigate, but Morgana sabotaged every attempt. When he looked for records, she claimed they had been lost. When he tried to talk to old neighbors, she invented excuses to stop him. Mauricio began questioning Paula more frequently. "You sure you don't know this man?" "Absolutely, Mauricio, please trust me." But the constant pressure and the seemingly undeniable evidence began to take a toll on Mauricio. He loved Paula, but the doubts were growing. The wedding day arrived. The church was packed. Paula wore an elegant dress Mauricio had chosen, hoping it would make her feel worthy of her surroundings. Mauricio was impeccable, but visibly tense. The priest began the ceremony. When he got to the part about objections, Morgana stood up. "I have one," she said loudly for the whole church to hear. A murmur of shock spread through the crowd. Mauricio turned incredulous. "Mother, what are you doing?" "I cannot allow my son to marry based on lies." The priest tried to intervene. "Ma'am, perhaps it would be better to settle this in private." "No, Father, everyone needs to know." Morgana addressed the guests. "Paula hid from Mauricio that she has a living father, a former inmate and an alcoholic." At that moment, Osvaldo staggered into the church. Morgana had arranged for him to be invited as the father of the bride. "Paula, why didn't you invite me?" he shouted drunkenly. The church erupted in whispers. Some women stood up, scandalized. The priest tried to restore order. "Please, let's keep the peace." Paula looked at Mauricio, desperate. "Mauricio, I swear I don't know who this man is." Mauricio was being watched by hundreds of people. The social pressure was overwhelming. He initially tried to defend Paula. "Everyone, let's resolve this calmly." But Morgana insisted. "Son, you can't start a marriage on a foundation of lies." Osvaldo stumbled towards the altar. "Hey, Paula, why don't you admit I'm your father? I'm here to give you my blessing." Mauricio looked at Paula, then at Osvaldo, then at the whispering guests. Some were already leaving, others were filming with their phones. The humiliation was public and complete. Mauricio, a coward in the face of such pressure, made the worst decision of his life. "I need some time to figure this out." He didn't definitively cancel the wedding, but he asked the guests for a postponement. It was a cancellation. Paula looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You don't trust me." "I want to trust you, but—" "You chose to believe her," she said, pointing at Morgana, "instead of me." Paula took off the ring and placed it on the altar. "If you don't trust me, you don't really love me." She walked out of the church with dignity, not running. The guests whispered, but no one booed. Mauricio stood at the altar, watching the woman he loved leave, destroyed by his own cowardice. Morgana watched Paula leave and whispered, "My son is safe." She had no idea she had just sown the seeds of her own destruction. 3 years later, the truth would come back in a devastating way. Paula walked through the streets in her wedding dress, unaware that she carried in her womb the child of the man who had abandoned her. Morgana thought she had won, but she had lost everything. A month after the cancelled wedding, Paula woke up with nausea for the 3rd consecutive morning. She was living again in her humble home in the city outskirts with her mother, Aparecida Santos, who at 62 was battling diabetes and high blood pressure. "My daughter, you don't look well." Aparecida said, watching Paula rush to the bathroom. Paula came back, pale and shaking. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. "Mother, I think I'm pregnant." Aparecida closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the situation. Her daughter, publicly humiliated, was now carrying the child of the man who had abandoned her. "Are you sure? I'll buy a test." An hour later, Paula looked at the 2 lines on the pregnancy test. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She was carrying Mauricio's child, the man who chose to doubt her. "I have to tell him," Paula said to her mother. "Daughter, is that wise? After everything that happened, he has the right to know he's going to be a father." Paula picked up the phone with trembling hands and dialed Mauricio's number. He answered after several rings, his voice already slurred from drink, even though it was only noon. "Hello, Mauricio. It's me, Paula." A tense silence followed. Mauricio was in the mansion, trying to drown the pain of regret that consumed him. "Paula, I don't know if we should talk. I need to talk to you. It's important." "I don't think that's a good idea." "Mauricio, I'm pregnant." The silence stretched. Mauricio dropped his glass. "What?" "I'm having your baby." Morgana, who had been monitoring her son's calls for weeks due to her concerns about his depression, overheard the conversation on the extension in the living room. "Mauricio!" she broke in. "You can't believe this!" Paula heard Morgana's voice clearly. "Mrs. Morgana, were you listening?" "I was protecting my son from lies," Morgana replied coldly. "You were publicly humiliated. You're desperate. Of course you'd invent a pregnancy to get back in." Mauricio, confused and still under his mother's influence, made a terrible mistake. "Paula, how can I be sure it's my child?" The question pierced Paula's heart like a blade. "How can you even ask that? You were the only man in my life." Morgana continued on the line. "Mauricio, she could be with anyone now. Desperate women do anything." Mauricio, destroyed by guilt, but still manipulated, made another cowardly decision. "Paula, I can't deal with this right now. I need time to think." "Mauricio, please, at least listen to me." "Don't contact me again." Mauricio hung up. Paula stared at the phone, feeling her world completely crumble. Morgana hung up the extension, satisfied, but Mauricio did not feel better. On the contrary, he felt even more broken. The following months were the most difficult of Paula's life. Pregnant and without a job, she knocked on door after door. The public humiliation followed her, especially in the homes of the elite. "Aren't you the woman who left at the altar by Mauricio Belmont?" asked one high society matron. "I am, ma'am, but that won't affect my work." "Sorry, I can't hire you. I don't want gossip in my house." Paula managed to find sporadic work in more distant neighborhoods where her story hadn't reached. Some humbler employers hired her without knowing her past. "You seem like a hard worker," said Mrs. Celia, a woman from the working-class neighborhood. "I need someone reliable." These small victories were what kept Paula going. Aparecida watched her daughter come home exhausted and felt her heart break. Her diabetes worsened with the stress. "Daughter, I'm so worried about you and my little grandchild. We'll be okay, Mother. We'll get through this." Meanwhile, Mauricio sank deeper into depression. He drank every night and made impulsive business decisions. More importantly, he tried to reach out to Paula 3 times. The first time he went to her house, but Morgana followed him. "Mauricio, what are you doing?" "Here. I want to talk to her." "Son, you're drunk. You're going to make a mess of things." Morgana convinced him to go home. The second time, Mauricio sent flowers with a card that read, "I need to talk to you." But Morgana intercepted the delivery, bribing the florist. The third time, Mauricio called Paula's old workplace. But Morgana had called before, claiming he was being harassed and asking them not to give out any information. Mauricio began to question his mother more directly. "Mother, why did that man know so many details about Paula?" "Because he was her father, Mauricio. but she seemed genuinely surprised. What if we were wrong? Morgana felt a chill run down her spine and worked to maintain control. Son, you're just romanticizing. Besides, if she were really pregnant, she wouldn't have disappeared. A pregnant woman fights for her child's father. Mauricio accepted his mother's logic, unaware that Paula had tried to speak to him. Months after the cancelled wedding, Manuela was born. It was a difficult delivery in a public hospital, but when Paula saw her daughter, she knew all the suffering had been worth it. The baby was the spitting image of her father. She's identical to him, Aparecida whispered, looking at her granddaughter. Manuela had Mauricio's green eyes, the same face shape, even a small birthmark in the same place. There was no doubt who her father was. One day you'll meet your daddy, my princess, Paula promised. Paula worked during the day and took care of Manuela at night. Aparecida helped when she could, but her health was deteriorating. When Manuela turned 1, Paula saw an ad for free digital marketing courses. Something awakened within her. Mother, I'm going to take this course, but when will you find the time? You work all day. At night, online, after Manuela is asleep, Paula studied late into the night, discovering a natural talent for business. She met Fernanda in the course, a woman who was also struggling to get ahead in life. Paula, you have brilliant ideas, Fernanda said. Have you ever thought about starting something together? A cleaning company? We know the business, we have contacts. 2 years later, Limpa Vida Services had 15 employees. Paula, now 26, had discovered her talent for leading people and thriving despite adversity. Mommy is working? Manuela, now 2 years old and speaking simple words, asked. Mommy is working for the 2 of us, my princess. Unfortunately, when Manuela was 2.5, Aparecida could no longer fight. Advanced diabetes and heart complications took her life. Take good care of my granddaughter, were her last words, holding her daughter's hand. I'm so proud of the woman you've become, Paula. Paula wept, holding her daughter, who didn't fully understand what had happened. Grandma went to heaven, Paula explained simply. 6 months after her mother's death, when Manuela was 3, Paula decided it was time to seek the truth. She hired a private detective to find Osvaldo Peixoto. I found him, ma'am, the detective reported. He lives in a downtown boarding house. He's in bad shape. Paula went to the boarding house and found Osvaldo, unrecognizable, thin, in dirty clothes, smelling of alcohol. The $10,000 Morgana had paid him had been consumed quickly. Mr. Osvaldo. He looked at her, not recognizing her at first. I'm Paula Santos, the woman you pretended to be the father of. Osvaldo's eyes filled with tears. My God! What have I done? I need to talk to you. Osvaldo looked at Manuela, who was hiding behind her mother. Is that your daughter? Yes, and she has the right to know the truth about her father. Osvaldo staggered, but there was genuine repentance in his eyes. I lied. Morgana Belmont paid me to pretend to be your father, $10,000 to destroy your marriage. Paula felt anger and relief at the same time. Why? Why did you do it? I was desperate. I owed money to loan sharks. They threatened to break my legs. She offered me salvation. Osvaldo sobbed, but the money ran out fast, and now I'm worse off than before. Paula looked at the man who had destroyed her life, torn between rage and pity. Can you prove this? I can tell you everything, every detail she taught me, how she coached me, where we met. I need to record what you're saying. You can record it. I deserve to pay for what I did. Paula recorded the full confession. Osvaldo recounted every detail, how Morgana found him, the information she gave him, how he was coached to pretend to be Paula's father. She told me you were a gold digger, only after the money. But then I saw that you worked honestly, took care of your sick mother. I realized I was used to destroy an innocent family. When the recording ended, Paula still felt anger, but also pity. I won't lie, I hate what you did. but I see that you're remorseful. If you could ever forgive me. I can't completely forgive you yet, but I understand you were desperate. The real culprit is Morgana Belmont. Osvaldo nodded. What are you going to do now? Paula looked at Manuela, who was playing innocently nearby. I'm going to get justice. My daughter deserves to know her real father. That night, Paula planned carefully. 3 years had passed. Her company had grown. She was now a respected businesswoman. She was no longer the helpless cleaning lady. A week later, fate presented her with the perfect opportunity. Fernanda came. Into the office, animated. Paula, we got a big contract. Belmont Enterprises wants our services for their annual party. Paula's heart quickened. Belmont Enterprises. Yes, it's a prestigious contract. If we do a good job, other big clients will come. Paula smiled, but it was a cold smile. Accept the contract, Fernanda, but only use the company name, Limpa Vida Services. Don't mention our personal names. Why? Just trust me. It's a business strategy. Morgana signed the contract, unaware that she had just hired the company of the woman she had tried to destroy. The name Limpa Vida aroused no suspicion. In 2 weeks, at the Belmont Enterprises annual party, Paula Santos would return, but not as the humble cleaning lady from 3 years ago. She would return as a successful entrepreneur, the mother of a child identical to Mauricio, and the bearer of a truth that would destroy Morgana forever. Mommy is going to work at a party, Paula said to Manuela. Pretty party? Very pretty, my princess, and you're going to meet some important people. Meanwhile, Mauricio continued to sink into alcoholism and depression. 3 years later, he was a shadow of the man he once was. The company was in crisis. He couldn't form relationships with anyone. Morgana watched her son with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. She had managed to keep him away from Paula, but she had created a broken man. Mauricio, you need to stop drinking. Can't, Mother. I can't stop thinking about her. Forget that woman. She probably doesn't even remember you. Morgana had no idea that in 2 weeks she would discover just how wrong she was. Paula not only remembered Mauricio, but had raised his daughter alone and become an unstoppable force. The circle was closing, justice was coming, and Morgana Belmont was about to pay for the evil she had done, without even suspecting the storm that was approaching. The Belmont Enterprises Gala Hall was once again decorated for the annual company party. 3 years had passed since these walls last saw Paula Santos. This time, 200 high society guests circulated, but the atmosphere was different. Mauricio, visibly dejected at 37, mingled with the guests without the sparkle he once had. His expensive suit couldn't hide the signs of depression. His eyes were tired, his expression melancholy, his movements sluggish. Morgana, 61, watched her son with disguised concern. She had succeeded in keeping him away from Paula, but she had created a broken man who could barely keep the company running. Mauricio, at least smile for the investors, she whispered. I have no reason to smile, Mother. Outside, an elegant car pulled up to the entrance. Out stepped Paula Santos, now 27. She was transformed. She wore an elegant but understated dress, her hair was neatly cut, her posture was confident, the stance of someone who had succeeded through her own hard work. She was no longer invisible. Fernanda, her business partner, Paula, are you sure you don't want to bring Manuela? No, this could get heavy, and I don't want to expose my daughter to adult drama. She'll stay with the nanny at the hotel. What if Mauricio wants to meet her first? He needs to prove he deserves to. Paula took a deep breath. 3 years of preparation for this moment. In her purse, she carried her phone with Osvaldo's recorded confession. Osvaldo was waiting in the lobby of the building, still showing visible signs of alcoholism, but sober and determined. Paula entered the hall alone. Some reception staff recognized her as the contracted businesswoman from Limpa Vida Services, but no one had yet made the connection to the cleaning lady from 3 years ago. Mauricio was talking to an investor near the entrance when he saw an elegant woman enter. Something in her posture made him look twice. That's when he recognized her. The world stopped. Mauricio felt as if he had been punched in the gut. Paula was there, in the same hall where it all began, but completely transformed. She was no longer the humble cleaning lady. She was a successful, confident woman who had clearly won at life. "Excuse me," he said to the investor, but he hesitated. Part of him wanted to run to her. Part of him was afraid of what he would find. On the other side of the room, Morgana was talking with friends when someone commented, "Morgana, who is that elegant woman who just walked in?" Morgana turned and almost dropped her. Champagne flute. Paula Santos was there, at her party, in her house as a respectable businesswoman. "It can't be," she whispered, her blood running cold. Paula walked through the hall, politely greeting some guests. She was behaving like a businesswoman networking, but her eyes were searching for Mauricio. When their gazes finally met across the room, time stopped for both of them. Mauricio abandoned his conversation and walked hesitantly towards her. Paula remained standing, waiting, watching. His every reaction. When Mauricio approached, his voice was choked. "Paula! Mauricio!" They just stood there, staring at each other, carrying 3 years of unresolved pain. "You look different," he said. "People change when they need to survive." Mauricio swallowed hard. "Paula, She interrupted him, glancing around. "Not here. Too many curious ears." At that moment, Morgana approached, trying to maintain her composure but visibly shaken. "Paula, what are you doing here?" "Mrs. Morgana." Paula greeted her coldly. "I'm the entrepreneur hired to supervise the party services." Morgana was confused. "Entrepreneur? You have a company?" "I do. Limpa Vida Services. You signed our contract last week." The realization hit Morgana like a thunderbolt. She herself had hired Paula without knowing it. "This is a setup." "Why? Did you think I would stay broken and humiliated forever?" Mauricio watched the exchange between the two women, sensing layers to this story he didn't understand. "What are you two talking about?" "Mauricio," Paula said calmly, "your mother and I have unfinished business. But first I need to know, do you really want to talk to me, or are you just here out of politeness?" Mauricio hesitated, still the same divided man. "I want to talk, but I'm afraid of what you're going to tell me." "At least you're honest." Morgana tried to intervene. "Mauricio, we don't need this. Let's go home." "No, Mother. This time I want to hear what Paula has to say." It was a small step, but it was Mauricio choosing Paula over his mother for the first time. Mauricio led her to a private room adjacent to the hall. Morgana tried to follow them, but Paula stopped her. "Alone, Mrs. Morgana, as it should have been from the beginning." In the private room, Mauricio faced Paula for the first time in 3 years. "Paula, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything that happened." "Sorry?" Paula's tone was controlled. "Mauricio, you abandoned me when I needed you. Most. I know, and I've hated myself for it every day." Mauricio approached her. "Paula, I always had doubts about that day, about that man who claimed to be your father. But it was easier to believe my mother's version than to face the possibility that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. And is it still easier now?" Mauricio stopped, reflecting. "No. Now I want the truth, even if it destroys me." Paula watched him, seeing sincerity in his eyes, but also seeing her own 3 years of suffering. "Mauricio, I have a daughter." Mauricio's heart stopped. "A daughter? She's 3 years old. And before you ask, yes, she's yours." Mauricio sat down on a chair, the weight of the revelation hitting him. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried. I called you. Your mother called me a liar and you hung up on me." Mauricio closed his eyes, remembering the call. My God, it's true. For 3 years I raised our daughter alone. I worked, I studied, I built a company. All without you. Mauricio looked at her with a mixture of admiration and pain. What is she like? She's beautiful, intelligent, and she has your eyes. Can I meet her? Paula hesitated. Mauricio, I won't expose my daughter to a man who might disappear at the first sign of trouble. I won't disappear. How can I be sure? You abandoned me once before. Mauricio stood up, determination growing in his eyes. Because this time, I'll fight. This time, I won't let my mother or society make decisions for me. They returned to the hall, where Morgana was waiting nervously. She noticed something different about Mauricio. Mauricio, can we go home now? No, Mother. Now I'm going to find out the truth about what happened 3 years ago. The determination in Mauricio's voice made Morgana panic. Paula approached a few nearby guests, discreetly getting their attention. Excuse me. I would like to clarify something about my presence here. A small group gathered around her. Morgana tried to stop her, but Mauricio intervened. Let her speak, Mother. My name is Paula Santos. 3 years ago I was publicly humiliated in this very company. Today I discovered who was responsible for that humiliation. Some guests began to recognize her, whispering to each other. Morgana went pale. Paula, don't do this. Why, Mrs. Morgana, are you afraid of the truth? Paula took out her phone. I have a recording here of Osvaldo Peixoto, the man you paid to pretend to be my father. Mauricio turned pale. What? He confessed everything, how your mother found him, how much she paid him, what information she gave him. Mauricio looked at his mother, who was visibly in a panic. Mother, is this true? Morgana tried one last strategy. Mauricio, this woman is making things up. She wants revenge. Then let's prove it, Paula said. Osvaldo is in the lobby of this building ready to repeat his confession. Mauricio looked between the two women. Bring him here. Mauricio, you can't believe her. Morgana pleaded. Enough. Mauricio exploded for the first time. Mother, I am tired of your games. If you're innocent, you have nothing to fear. 20 minutes later, Osvaldo Peixoto came up to the hall, still thin and bearing the signs of alcoholism, but wearing clean clothes and determined to tell the truth. The group of guests had grown. Some had left, uncomfortable, others stayed out of curiosity, and some were discreetly filming with their phone. Paula approached the small stage with the unparty microphone. Excuse me, everyone, I need to clarify something important. Around 50 people gathered around, while others continued their conversations or left the party, embarrassed by the drama. This is Osvaldo Peixoto. 3 years ago, he pretended to be my father to destroy my wedding. A murmur ran through the group. Osvaldo took the microphone with trembling hands. It's true. Morgana Belmont paid me $10,000 to lie. Morgana tried one last time, approaching Osvaldo. How much is she paying you to lie now? She asked loudly. Nothing, Osvaldo replied firmly. I'm here because I need to clear my conscience. Mauricio approached the man. Tell everything. Every detail. Osvaldo took a deep breath. Morgana came to me in my neighborhood, said she would pay me to pretend to be Paula's father. She gave me information about her life. She coached me to be convincing. Why? Mauricio asked, although he already suspected the answer. She said you were marrying a gold digger who would ruin your life. But I lived near Paula. I saw her taking care of her sick mother, working honestly. She was never a gold digger. Mauricio turned to Morgana, who was trapped. Mother, look me in the eye and tell me this is a lie. Morgana looked at her son and couldn't lie. Guilt was etched on her face. Mauricio, I just wanted to protect you. Protect me? Mauricio shouted, his anger finally erupting. You destroyed the woman I loved and made me lose 3 years of my daughter's life. The guests watched in shock. Some women commented indignantly, how horrible. To pay someone to lie at the altar. How cruel. Mauricio turned to the guests. "I want you all to know, my mother destroyed my marriage out of prejudice and control. Paula Santos is an honest woman who built her own company, and I intend to spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the mistake I made." Morgana realized she had lost everything: her son, the granddaughter she didn't even know, and her social standing. "Mauricio, please, can we talk at home?" "I don't want to talk to you right now. I need time away from you to decide if I can ever forgive what you've done." It wasn't a definitive break, but it was Mauricio finally separating himself from his mother for the first time. Paula watched the scene with satisfaction. The truth had finally come out. Mauricio approached her. "Paula, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but can I meet my daughter?" Paula looked at him for a long moment. "Mauricio, I won't allow you to enter her life only to disappear again. If you want to be a father, you'll have to prove it for months that you've changed." "I will prove it. I don't know how yet, but I will prove it. We'll start slow. You can meet her tomorrow in a neutral location. After that, we'll see if you truly want to be a father or if you're just feeling guilty." Mauricio nodded. "I accept your condition." The party was practically over. Many guests had left in embarrassment. Others whispered about the scandal. Morgana left, humiliated and alone, while Mauricio stayed to talk with Paula about the next steps. Osvaldo approached Paula. "I hope you can forgive me someday." "I'm trying, Osvaldo. At least today, you did the right thing. The truth has finally come out." Morgana had been exposed. Mauricio had taken responsibility. But the real test was yet to come. Would Mauricio be able to be the father Manuela deserved? Would Paula be able to forgive 3 years of abandonment? And would Morgana accept defeat, or was she planning a final revenge? Justice had been served, but the rebuilding of a family was just beginning. The next day, after the shocking revelation at the party, Mauricio sat in a kids' cafe at the mall, more nervous than he had ever been in his life. His hands trembled slightly, not just from nerves, but because he had been sober for 2 days, trying to prepare to meet his daughter. Paula walked in, holding the hand of Manuela, a 3-year-old, with eyes identical to her father's. Mauricio's heart pounded when he saw her up close for the first time. "Manuela, this is Mauricio. He's a friend of Mommy." Paula decided not to explain the paternity right away. She wanted to see how Mauricio behaved before getting the child's hopes up. Mauricio knelt to be at Manuela's height. "Hi, Manuela. You are very pretty." "Thank you," the child replied shyly, hiding behind her mother. "She's a little shy with strangers," Paula explained. The word strangers cut Mauricio to the core. He was a stranger to his own daughter. "Manuela, would you like some ice cream?" Mauricio asked gently. The child looked at her mother, who nodded affirmatively. "I want chocolate." For the next hour, Mauricio watched Manuela's every move, but she remained distant. When he tried to get close, she backed away. When he offered her toys, she accepted them, but didn't interact much. "It always takes her a while to warm up to people," Paula explained, seeing Mauricio's frustration. Can I see her again?" "Once a week, always in a public place, always at a set time." "And Mauricio," Paula looked at him firmly, "if you miss one time, it's over." "I accept." In the following weeks, Mauricio established a routine, but struggled with his demons. At their 3rd meeting, he arrived late, and Paula noticed he had been drinking the night before. "Mauricio, you've been drinking." "Just a little, to calm my nerves." "Meeting cancelled." "Paula, please, no. If you want to be a father, you have to be sober always." Mauricio went home, frustrated, and drank even more. It was the beginning of a cycle of attempts and relapses that would last for months. At the 5th meeting, 2 weeks later, Mauricio arrived sober, but Manuela asked a question no one expected. "Why did you leave?" Mauricio was speechless. The 3-year-old, even without fully understanding, felt the absence. "I didn't know you existed, my princess. Mommy used to cry at night. Was it because of you? Paula tensed. Manuela remembered more than she realized. Sweetie, we'll talk about this at home, Paula tried to deflect. I don't want Mommy to cry again, Manuela said, looking at Mauricio with suspicion. Mauricio felt the weight of the pain he had caused, not only Paula, but also, indirectly, his daughter. I promise I will never make your mommy cry again. A little lie promise, or a real promise. But Manuela wasn't convinced. It took 2 months for her to start genuinely interacting with Mauricio. Meanwhile, Morgana lived her own private hell. For 3 months, she had lost all her friends, was kicked out of her social club, and the maids had all quit. The huge mansion echoed empty. She wasn't remorseful out of love. She was remorseful because she was lonely. The difference was subtle but important. If I had known it would end like this, she murmured to herself, looking at old photos of Mauricio. It wasn't regret for the harm she had done, but lament for the consequences she hadn't foreseen. 6 months after the first meeting, Mauricio showed signs of real improvement. He stopped drinking during the week, went to therapy twice a week, and showed genuine interest in Manuela. But he still had relapses on weekends. How was her day at daycare? He always asked. She got into a fight with a boy, said. She said he pulled her hair. I need to teach her how to defend herself, Mauricio said instinctively. These were small details of fatherhood that showed growth, but Paula still kept her guard up. A year after the meetings began, Manuela finally asked, "Is he my daddy?" Paula took a deep breath. The child was now 4 and understood more. Yes, sweetie, he's your daddy, but he went away when you were a baby. Why? Because he made bad choices, but now he's trying to make good choices. Is he going to leave again? I don't know, honey. That's why we're going slow. It was an honest answer that reflected Paula's uncertainty. In the 15th month, Manuela got sick with a high fever. Paula called Mauricio. Is she okay? He asked immediately. She has a 102-degree fever. I'm taking her to the hospital. Can I come with you? Paula hesitated. It would be the first time Mauricio accompanied her in a real parenting situation. Yes, you can. At the hospital, Mauricio showed genuine concern. He stayed up all night, constantly checking Manuela's temperature, telling her stories to distract her. Daddy, are you staying here? Manuela asked sleepily. It was the first time she had called him Daddy spontaneously. Mauricio looked at Paula, who nodded affirmatively. I'm staying, my princess. It was an important milestone, but Paula still didn't let her guard down completely. 18 months after their first meeting, Mauricio proved a deeper change. Paula needed to travel for work for 3 days, and, for the first time, considered leaving Manuela with her father. Are you sure? Mauricio asked. Nervously, if you want to be a real father, you have to take on real responsibility. Mauricio spent 3 days taking care of Manuela alone. He took her to daycare, picked her up on time, tried to make dinner, burning the first attempt, gave her a bath, and told her story. On the 2nd day, he had a relapse. Manuela was sleeping, and he opened a beer, but before drinking it, he looked at his daughter and poured the beer down the sink. Daddy can't drink when he's taking care of you. He said to himself. It was a small but significant victory. When Paula returned, she found the house reasonably tidy and Manuela happy. How was it? She asked. Daddy burned the pasta, Manuela said, laughing, but he ordered pizza. Mauricio blushed, but Paula smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. 2 years after their first meeting, Paula finally saw consistent changes in Mauricio. He had been sober for 6 consecutive months. Therapy was working, and Manuela was genuinely attached to her. Father, Mauricio, you have changed, Paula admitted. I'm still changing every day. Can I ask you something? What truly made you stop drinking? Mauricio thought for a moment. One day, Manuela asked me why my eyes were red. I realized she was associating it with sadness. I didn't want her to grow up thinking her daddy was a sad person. It was a response that showed real emotional maturity. During those 2 years, Morgana had tried to reconcile with Mauricio multiple times. All were rejected. She lived in a simple apartment, supported by the sale of the mansion, and was completely socially isolated. One day, she went to Paula's office. "I want to speak with Paula Santos." Paula received her more out of curiosity than anything else. "I came to ask to meet my granddaughter," Morgana said directly. "After 2 years, I'm alone, Paula, completely alone." Morgana showed no genuine remorse for what she had done, only for the consequences she hadn't foreseen. "I lost my friends, my position, my son. I just want to meet the child. That's not my decision. It's Mauricio's. He doesn't answer my call." "Then perhaps you should think about why." Morgana left without an answer, but Paula mentioned the request to Mauricio. "She wants to meet Manuela." Mauricio was tense for a long moment. "What do you think?" "I think Manuela has the right to know her grandmother, but it should be supervised and for a short time." Mauricio reluctantly agreed. A week later, in a public park, the first meeting between Morgana and Manuela took place. Mauricio and Paula watched their every move. "Manuela, this is your grandmother, Morgana." Mauricio introduced her coldly. Manuela, now 5, looked curiously at the older woman. "Why are you sad?" the child asked with the brutal honesty of a child. Morgana was taken aback. "I'm not sad." "Yes, you are, just like Daddy used to be." Morgana knelt down to the child's level and for the first time in months smiled. "You're very smart. Mommy says I'm smart just like Daddy." It was a simple moment, but Morgana finally met the granddaughter she had helped to lose. 2.5 years after their first meeting, Mauricio finally felt ready for a bigger commitment. On a Sunday in the park, with Manuela playing on the swings, Mauricio asked Paula a question. "Do you think I'm worthy of a second chance?" Paula looked at him. 2.5 years of steady growth, therapy, sustained sobriety, and responsible fatherhood. "Mauricio, it's not a question of being worthy. It's a question of me being able to trust you again." "And can you?" "I'm learning to." It was an honest answer that reflected the gradual process of rebuilding trust. Mauricio took a small box from his pocket and knelt in front of Paula. "Paula Santos, 5 years ago I asked you to marry me for the wrong reasons, at the wrong time. Today, I'm asking again. I want to try again, knowing that it won't be perfect, that we'll have problems, but that I will fight every day to be the man you and our daughter deserve." Paula looked at Mauricio, at Manuela, who had stopped playing to watch, and at the 2.5 years of growth she had witnessed. "Yes, but we'll take it slow." Manuela ran to hug them both. "Are we going to live together?" "Yes, my princess," Mauricio replied. "And you're not going to leave again?" "Never again." This time the promise had the weight of experience. 6 months later, they married in a simple ceremony. Manuela was the flower girl, but during the ceremony she asked loudly, "Why is everyone crying?" The child's spontaneity eased the tension that naturally existed. Paula still had moments of anxiety. Mauricio still struggled with insecurity. But they were building something real. Morgana was present, sitting at the back of the church, but the relationship was still tense. Mauricio tolerated her for the sake of his granddaughter, not out of forgiveness. When the priest asked if anyone had any objection, there was a moment of tense silence. Everyone remembered what had happened 5 years ago, but this time no one stood up. Mauricio and Paula kissed as husband and wife, while Manuela applauded and shouted, "We did it!" A year after the wedding, they had normal couple arguments. Mauricio sometimes got impatient. Paula was sometimes too controlling, but they had learned to resolve conflicts without running away. "Sometimes I'm still afraid," Paula confessed one night. "Of what?" that you'll give up when things get hard. I understand. I'll have to prove myself every day for the rest of my life. It was a mature response that showed an understanding of reality. Manuela, now 6, sometimes asked, "Why does Grandma Morgana live alone?" "Because she did bad things." Mauricio explained simply, "Some things are hard to forgive, my princess." Morgana visited once a month, always supervised. She hadn't completely changed. She still made subtly manipulative comments, still tried to control situations. But she had learned her limits. Paula's company had grown to 80 employees. It wasn't an empire, but it was a solid and respected business. Mauricio helped with the administrative side, applying his business experience. Osvaldo managed to stay sober for long periods, but had several relapses. He worked part-time as a gardener for the company, part of a rehabilitation program. It wasn't a story of complete redemption, but of constant struggle. 5 years after their first meeting, Mauricio and Paula didn't have a perfect marriage, but they had a real one. They argued about money, Manuela's education, and the division of household chores. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing," Paula said during a fight about Manuela's discipline. "Do you regret it?" Mauricio asked, concerned. "No, but sometimes it's hard." "It is for me too." It was the honesty that sustained the relationship. Manuela, now 8, understood her family's story. "Daddy, why did you and Mommy take so long to get married?" "Because Daddy needed to learn to be a better person." "And you did." "I'm still learning." Morgana, at 66, lived a small but dignified life. She saw her granddaughter regularly, but never recovered her social standing or her close relationship with Mauricio. She paid all the consequences of her choices, but wasn't destroyed. The humiliated cleaning lady became a respected businesswoman and a wife who still struggled with insecurity. The cowardly man became a present father who still battled his demons. The child born without a father now had an imperfect but real family, and Morgana learned that some actions have permanent consequences. She lost control over her son, but gained a granddaughter who visited her, and a life that, although lonely, had dignity. True love won, but it wasn't easy, it wasn't fast, and it wasn't perfect. It was real. Manuela grew up knowing that people can change, that mistakes have consequences, but that it's also possible to rebuild trust through time and consistent actions. In the end, everyone paid for their choices and had the chance to grow through the consequences. Some wounds healed, others left permanent scars. But a family was built not on perfection, but on persistence, on gradual forgiveness, and on the daily choice to try to be better. Thank you for watching. May this story inspire your day. Like, share, and stay tuned for more.